we're going to get started. And I am going to ask you, Jean, because I just looked at your IMDb, which is very vast, and the shows that you've worked on over the years are the list is very, very long, and you're nominated for many awards and won quite a few too. I was just checking you out this morning. The Loud House, Rugrats, Blaze and the Monster Machines, Oddballs, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Barbie, Teen Titans. I could go Invader Zim. That's a great show. So there's so many different shows that you've worked on, and I'm sure you've worked with many different executive producers and creators as well. So how did you first get into casting, Jean?
It was actually, I started in live action for a few years. I trained as an actor. I went to school for acting. And when I got out of school, I kind of didn't want to, it was like a failure to launch thing. I didn't really want to be an actor. And I fell into an internship for casting with casting director Mary Vernew, and she was doing Idiocracy and Sin City and all these cool projects that I got to sort the headshots for. And then, am I quiet, someone said, or should they just turn up the volume?
I think you seem fine to me.
Okay.
Little quiet.
I'll try to speak up.
A little quiet? Okay.
So I fell into that casting internship, and that kind of turned into a 5-year career in live action casting, where we did little indie films. We worked for Rogue and Dimension, stuff like that, and we cast the Rob Zombie Halloween films and things like that. Until 2009, when the recession hit, and then the financing fell out of independent casting. And that's when a job opening popped up at Nickelodeon, and I jumped over there in the animation department. And I had always loved animation. And then I was there for about 10 years, slowly, with that department. I became the department head, and we cast all the pilots and all the shorts and did all the celebrity casting. And it was a great time. And that was where I really cut my teeth in animation.
That's a great. And were you like a big animation fan before you started?
Oh, yeah. Anime when I was in, high school, and just cartoons before that. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have, it's probably not fair to ask this question, but do you have a favorite show that you've cast? Like, is something that stands out among the others?
They're all my precious children. I think Legend of Korra, I was super proud of Avatar: The Legend of Korra. Because everybody wanted to do that, and that was just a great show. And then, most recently, my adventures with Superman, I'm having so much fun voice directing that. Those are like the two that I really are close to my heart. And they share a lot of artists. There are a lot of board directors from Avatar that ended up on Superman.
Oh, that's so cool. I know, I saw your Superman credit. That is not a Nick show, right? That's a WB.
No, that's Warner Brothers.
WB show.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I wasn't planning to go segueing into voice directing right now, but now that you said it, I'm going to have to. So, did you wait? Stop. Did you always want to voice direct? That's the question.
Oh, sure. And that was also part of the responsibilities for casting at Nickelodeon. Is when we would do a pilot, it was usually for first time showrunners or very young EPs and artists who didn't have that skill set. So we would almost always, when we did a pilot, we would cast the pilot, and then we would get to voice direct that same pilot. So it was great training for me. And also it's very fun to be able to buy the ingredients and bake the cake, right? And that's, we did that for all the pilots and all the shorts coming up. And then we were if there was a voice director on a show that was very busy, we would also act as the backup voice director.
Yeah, the fill-in.
Exactly. Yeah. On Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we had Rob Paulson, who was a brilliant actor and one of the older Ninja Turtles. voice directing, but he was a full working actor, so we couldn't get him to do some of the sessions, and we would be the backup.
Very cool. I know when, like, how many years ago? 30 something years ago, I was an editor, a film editor then, and the film I cut the film down, which I thought was the best cut, and the film ended up being too short. So the director went on to move on to something else, and he said, well, I really trust Paulette, have her write something, add something, direct it. And I was like, that was my first directing job I had. And so I think, getting to work with people, having people trust you, and I think that those opportunities come up naturally because you've learned a lot, you've worked with people, and you get these great opportunities, because I really believe that careers don't usually go in a straight line. They usually go zigzaggy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you, so t- are you now doing like mostly casting and some directing? Are you doing both and both? Or you?
It's really 50-50, right? So
Yeah.
on some shows I do both. Some shows I've just done the casting. Some shows I just do the voice directing. On video games as well. Video games, usually those big AAA games need like one casting director and a dozen voice directors. So I will just jump in on some of those and do voice directing. So it's like really dependent on the project and dependent on what they need. The casting I've done where I haven't done voice directing, it's because the EP or the showrunner could do the voice directing and wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah.
So it all depends. It's very project by project.
Yeah, it is very project by project. So let me ask you something when it comes to casting. And I know, because I do casting as well, we usually have our go-to actors or go-to agencies that we've been using for quite a long time. But when you need to cast a wider net, let's say you're looking for something specific and your go-to people, it's not gonna work. How do you do a wider casting when something comes up that's more difficult? Or so far everybody you found they're not hearing it yet?
Yeah, sure. When I do casting, I start with about 30 agencies. It's like almost all the like agents that understand like what you would need in voiceover.
Animation, yeah.
Yeah. So and from that, for a role, I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but like actors should know, like if I put out a role of like, if it's not super specific, it's just like tiger, adult male voice, got a funny, this, that, and describe this character, I'll get like 500, right? And so if I've gone through those 500 actors and we've put forward like a set or two of like 10 or 15 of those that we really think are nailing it, and I'm just not getting it, and it's not about like my choices, it's not about like the character changing, and I really just need to delve deeper, I will reach out to agents that don't necessarily do voiceover or are more in the live action space. I will reach out to UCB or the Groundlings and see who they have on their roster that might be right. I'll reach out to, if I really need a wide net for something really specific, I'll put down a Breakdown Express, like a breakdown.
Yeah.
And then I'll do the breakdown to the public as well in New York and Los Angeles. Although those can be a real roll of the dice. I mean, those would be my next big step. After that, if I'm not getting it after that, there's really something wrong with either me or the showrunner or the concept of the character.
Yeah.
Like, you should be able to get it from.
You should be able to get it.
Because that's the whole community.
Do you ever do redirects on some auditions, like the person's almost there, or you want to hear something a little bit different, but you know they can do it? Do you do that?
Yeah. We usually, almost every role nowadays, unless it's a small role, I'm doing callbacks. If I don't know the actor, I'm doing callbacks from a select just to make sure.
Are you doing callbacks?
10 we'll give it to the producers. They'll narrow it down to like 3 or 4, and then we'll do callbacks with those.
Are you doing your callbacks on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question when it comes to callbacks. This is I love this question. Okay, because some people are like, I feel shy if my camera's on, but I believe your camera should be on in a callback. Correct?
Yeah. Not for any other reason than people are used to it.
Yeah.
People are used to it. We don't care if it's your closet and we can see like, your spring fashion background, whatever. They just want to, it also puts like a human that I'm going to be working with to the voice. And like people like to hire who they know. And suddenly, like if you're on camera for a minute, now the EP feels like he knows you a little more. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I recommend it too. I think the more that you also expose yourself to things that you're scared of, the less you become scared later. So, because otherwise you're just permeating fear, which I don't think is never good. I had a question I was going to ask you that had to do with the wider net thing, and I forgot what it was going to be. So if you do you ever do? I had one student who got a role from a Facebook post in a Pixar Disney movie, and it was one of the second leads. They're looking for something specific, a singer of a certain racial background. Would you ever post? And they didn't say what it was for, and you had no idea. And it was 3 to 4 months before you heard back.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Would that wider net ever be something that you guys would do, or is that just not something that Nickelodeon ever would do or never consider?
Nick, when I was at Nick, they had really strict rules about diversity, and this was the problem because like we in the creative half of Nickelodeon, like the EPs and the creators and everybody and the casting, we really like were gunning for diversity and inclusion and a lot of stuff that, when I was there in my tenure, we went from casts that were, if you look at the SpongeBob cast, which was like right before me, to like stuff that near the end, the diversity really blossomed in that time. The only problem was Business Affairs, which has the authority to check all of our breakdowns and anything we release, because we're releasing it as the official word of this company, right? So Business Affairs had a real tough time releasing anything mentioning any kind of diversity at all because they thought it could be construed as job discrimination. So if we had a character where we wanted someone Hispanic in it, or we were looking for a specifically like the character was Filipino or anything like that, we couldn't mention it in breakdowns. We couldn't mention it in any public-facing text. So we would have conversations. We would have, conversations that weren't written down with agents explaining what we were doing, but it could never be just out there because Business Affairs was afraid we would get sued. So it was very difficult. And it was also a shame because on occasion, a breakdown, I never did this, but on occasion, a breakdown would come out through live action or some of the other places where they were just going like, well, we'll just have all the actors audition for it, and then only 7 of them will be right anyway. So then they were just wasting 98% of people's time. So it was a very tough, and I assume the big companies are still wrestling with this in certain ways, which was why you will see some weirdly written breakdowns that are hinting at that.
Yeah, well, we still have a lot of actors who get auditions where you obviously know that you're not going to be racially the correct.
Yeah. And it goes from us to the agents, and a lot of the agents are smart enough to go like, oh, it's, this character is Asian. I should go to
my Asian
clientele.
But
And then there are some agents that go just like, well, it doesn't say so. So they just send it to everybody.
do you think that, now this is kind of, it's not really controversial, but this is my opinion on agents. Sometimes they send it to everyone in there because they want them to feel like they're having opportunities if they're not getting a lot of casting stuff coming in. So they just send it out anyway, or they're just not, maybe they have a blanket list and just goes here and they don't even think about it.
Yeah, some do, some don't.
Yeah. Some do, some
Right.
don't. Yeah.
And, you're never going to know. And you're never going to be able to control like what your agent does as a job. If you feel you're like, I want my agent to send me out on more things or this, or I feel more like this or less like this.
Yeah.
If they start doing it, I don't think it's because they think you're right. I think it's because they are just like, it's easier just to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So, either they're there, either you have an agent that is there and you really trust like their advice and their opinion, and you're just going to go with this expert in the field, or you just like, I have an agent so I can get breakdowns and I'm going to do whatever, and you don't get that advice, that management, that guidance segment of what you're paying your 10% for.
Yeah. What do you do you ever use a casting assistant that goes through stuff for you before you start?
Not anymore. Technology is such that I can be a one-person shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you ever need somebody, I'm right here. And I'm joking. I told a story once, well, but probably more than one time. When I was casting a Netflix series, it was the first time I cast a series, and it was Spy Kids Mission Critical, and I wanted to do such a good job that I did the top 10 agencies, and they sent me everybody. Wasn't specific. I mean, I had specific casting requirements of what they needed to sound like. And I created this book that was this thick, and then I had everybody's name printed out, and then I scored them from 1 to 10. It took me an entire week of listening to every single person, and that was not the smartest use of my time. But I think though, when you do something for the first time and it's yours, maybe that's something that you do because you want to make sure that you get hired again, or that you've done a really great job. So when you're on your first casting series job, what is something that you've done that you don't need to do now?
I think it's very similar to that. I did try to take, because, all right, in live action, we didn't have the submitted auditions when I was young. On live action, you called in the specific actors you wanted, and they were going to audition in front of you live with no tape. So you had to be very specific. You had to take all your notes, and you had to be organized in that way. And then when I got to animation, and it was just, you send it out to the agents, and they're going to send you all the actors. I also got overwhelmed to the point where I was trying to take actual notes, create a scoring system, this and that, and it's overwhelming, right? And also I tried to just grind through and listen to everybody, and I've since learned that my ears can't take more than an hour, right? So I listen for an hour, I put it down, I do something else, I come back, I listen for an hour, I put it down, I do something else. I've got to it's for my sanity and for the benefit of the actors that are trying for me to know that I'm coming at this with fresh ears. You're not the 400th in a row I'm listening to. I've stopped, I've thought about what I've done, I've come back, I have to go at my pace. And I think those are the two things I really learned, is just don't worry about the words and trying to describe and remember each individual audition, because it will just, the ones that are right will pop out.
Yeah.
And then don't push yourself on some kind of crazy deadline that you want to, grind through all this stuff with excitement, because it's not fair to the people who are trying, because they'll all just be the ones in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. That I agree. I feel too, sometimes it's interesting when you star somebody, that's one of the things I do, star somebody and go through and figure it out. And then I go back again to the top again. because I've listened to now some other people that are, let's say I've found 10 people that I like. Sometimes that top one I picked goes off my list.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I do is I sort them into folders. So
Yeah.
I will make a yes folder and a maybe folder, right? And stuff that I think is great is all going into the yes folder, and stuff that I'm like, there's something there, goes into the maybe folder. And at the end of it, either I have way too many yeses, and then I got to just move some more people into maybe, or I don't have enough yeses, and I go back and I review the maybes and like would see if there's something I missed.
Do you ever have a no folder?
No, I have hold, which means if I'm wrong about the character, these people that weren't right now might be right later.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah. One time I was on a show and we had our yes folders and then we had our no folders. And when I sent the audition out, I said it was a female and 2 males, but they were penguins. So I said, audition for whatever you feel like you're right for. So I had some women audition for some of the male roles, and the client went into the no folder and found that one and picked that person. And the person, I love that person. So it's not like I didn't like them. I thought they were great. I didn't think they were right from the description that they gave me. Does that happen when you have a description and you feel like you know what it's supposed to sound like and it's completely something different, or they pick something completely off the wall?
I've had a lot of, because I don't send the no's, right? I'll just send the yeses, or what I think are the yeses. But I've had because casting's a conversation, right? They said a thing, which is the breakdown or the script or the meeting. I said something back, which is, what about these 10 people? And then they'll either say, I like this one and this one, or they'll say, all of these are too old, or all of these are too squeaky, or all of these, and if it's a blanket of that, I go back to the drawing board with that new information, and I will re-listen to, who I haven't sent in a new space. And sometimes it's like, we can go and revisit those auditions for 2 or 3 different rounds, and it's nobody's fault. It's while the creator begins to understand what they actually want instead of what they said they wanted. And that's part of the audition process. Is we always used to say, like, there are 3 reasons for that audition when we were bringing people in at Nick. The first one was to try to find the actor for the role. The second one was, hopefully, if we chose scenes from the pilot that weren't the strongest, we're workshopping those scenes over and over again to see what's funny and what's not. And then the third was to kind of test the EP's leadership capabilities, and if they were able to accurately describe things, or if they were a constant moving target. That was all information that development would get, not only from the actors but also from this EP.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I interviewed FM DeMarco, and he's on our podcast. He was the EP on Where's Waldo, and I worked with him on Spy Kids, and he's done Dragons and some other things. He's a great guy. And one of the things that we talked about was the scripts themselves. So when we're looking at auditions, one of the things that he said, and I agree with him, especially for lead roles, is that they pick sides to hear your range emotionally, what you can do as an actor. A lot of times, especially if you're carrying a show, when you're one of the top 2 or top 4 leads, that's very important. Do you feel like that's something that you've seen in your own experiences?
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have enough text in whatever script you're working on features, yeah, obviously you will, because that's the whole project. But hopefully in your pilot, because the pilot often is not, it's only the beginning of the arc for the characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may not have 2 or 3 of those aspects that they really think they need in an actor. And if that comes up as a problem, I ask them for additional scenes, right? So it may be scenes that, they have to write on the fly, imagining where the character is 7 episodes in. But yeah, we do try to hit all the aspects. In comedy, we do really try to pick the funniest and the least funny scene, not to see if they can be serious, but to see if they can plus up material. Because a lot of times a creator will go like, I just need someone to like, take this and run with it, which means they want it to
Yeah.
like, they want to,
They
they
need
want someone to,
additional writer.
script doctor their
Yeah,
stuff
they need
because it's
additional
not
writer.
no one's saying it as funny as I imagine it. And you're like, yeah, there's a reason for that. So, but they eventually get someone to come and hijack their own script and add some funny stuff to it. And then it's brilliant and they feel brilliant. That happens every once in a while.
Yeah, when we talk about make sure that you feel comfortable doing improv, because I've seen that too, where I've voice directed pilot and the writer the EP didn't tell me even ahead of time that's what they were going to do, and they're like, give me this line, change it 10 different ways. They're like,
sure,
huh? And some people are really great at it and some people aren't.
The opposite can also be true. So like learn to do your improv, but only do it when requested. Because I've had showrunners who are very precious about it's been crafted, it's dinner not supper, it's fall not autumn. These words have meaning, and then when people try to add their little flavors, it's like poison, right? So, and it's a very difficult thing. They'll give you the signs. They say things like "make it your own" or something like that to make you go like, okay, all right. Otherwise, stick to the script most of the time.
Yeah, I would say that too as well, because sometimes you can get carried away. I was going to ask you a question. This is a very awful question. And we're not naming names, just so you know, I'm not naming names. So I was in a session a year and a half ago, and we hired an actor that I'd never worked with before, and from a top agency. And she was drunk. I think she was drunk. She had to be drunk. You ever worked with somebody who was drunk, like showed up for a session, either high, drunk, or hungover or something, and you were like, what is going on here? And how do I manage this out of control person?
I've had a few auditions where I thought the actor might be high, but I never had the unfortunate hiring of someone and had them show up like that.
Well, it was on Zoom, so I didn't really get to see her in person. So,
yeah, that never happened to me so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
we've done a lot of work with kids, and we had one or two kids that auditioned fine, and then when they got to come in for the performance, you could tell that they just, for one reason or another, didn't want to do it. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can even work with them, but like there's to a point where it's just like, this is just going to go downhill. So
cut your losses.
Thank you, and you're all done. Thank you for your work, and then figure out somebody else.
Yeah. So that leads me to only twice. Is it only twice? I think only twice I've had to recast somebody after they've got the role. One person happened to be married to a top agent in this industry, so that was a really awful phone call for me. And one was someone who works with you probably a lot, an amazing actress. And she was doing a role as a boy. And the producer found out and said, I have a mental block against women doing boys. So we had to hire a real boy. And I gave her like a whole bunch of roles after that and everything I worked on to make it up to her. Has those ever come across your path, and do you have to handle it, or does the EP or somebody else whoever you're working for handles it?
When it happens, I've always had to handle it. And it's usually not the fault of the actor. It's usually
a weird thing.
Yeah, it's usually like when we put them in, the performance was fine. Then when we put it against like the character, art, it just doesn't match up. It looks kind of like a parody of what it should be, or it's too
Makes sense.
young, or it sounds exactly like the lead now that we changed the lead, or like there was some kind of happenstance that made it that like, it's not right for this one. I always, I don't feel super bad about that because it happens, and we give it our go. If a producing team comes back and says like that wasn't one I planned, and they're wishy washy about like why they want to replace, I will usually suggest that we do like let's do some pickups. Let's really give this another go. But if it is a thing that it makes plausible sense, and I tend to agree that like all the other voices cut through, except this one voice just kind of fades into the background of the ensemble, and that won't do, or it wasn't as funny as like the auditions, and we just couldn't get that person there, or for any reason that's like a legitimate reason, it's kind of best to cut the cord instead of
Yeah.
torturing them with like re-auditioning or this or that, or like hiding the act that the fact that like half of the bosses don't like them. That's not a good place to be as an actor.
No.
So they already got paid. Thank you for your work. It's going to be great. You're going to have a great career. There's no such thing as a break in Hollywood. It's all these tiny little mini breaks. So like that was one, you'll get another, just keep at it.
Yeah.
That's the adult way.
That's it. Well, yeah, it's never fun. So I guess I was the one that was supposed to deliver that bad news. So thank you. I always thought I was being thrown
Yeah.
under the bus.
No.
Um, I guess not. How often do you guys do chemistry reads?
For the leads, if it's series leads, we may do chemistry reads. It's the difficult chemistry read are the one where it's just like, well, I got three guys and the three girls, so let's do 6 auditions. With like
Oh
each
gosh.
one against the other one. The easier one is like we've got the guy. Let's make sure the girl, or let's make sure the friend, or the daughter, or the whatever matches up. And then if it's like your lead you've already hired, and then like a choice of 3 or 4 of the co-lead, that's much easier.
Do you do the actors know ahead of time that
Uh-huh.
there's other competition, or do they
Uh-huh.
know? Okay.
For
Okay.
that especially, because back in the live action days, like you would call all 6 of them into the waiting room together, and then just play mix and match for 2 hours. So they got to know what they're getting into. Otherwise, they show up and think,
Yeah.
no, think they're a shoe in, and then suddenly it's like, that throws them off. They got to know.
Yeah, I think someone just wrote in there about not taking it personal when you lose a job or you do get recast. And it's the same thing goes for in our business as well, because we don't always get every job that we try to get. And yeah, sometimes I remember doing a signatory job for a big movie, and they wanted me to cast it, and I did all the paperwork and got them all of their SAG stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, we found this other casting director." I'm like, "Really?" So
Well,
they hired this other person. I was very nice about it and said, "Well, I'm here if you have questions. I help you." Blah blah. A month later, they called me. They said the person had something happen to them, and they got in an accident or something, and they can't work. So then I got that job, and I wanted to voice direct as a really great project. And they hadn't hired me until I did a call back with the final lead. And he's like, "Oh, I really liked how you worked with that kid. Do you want to voice direct the whole thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I yes."
right.
So I think, getting, as I said before, and this is like a theme we brought up in the beginning about when you work with people and they see what you can do and they see that you're likable and easy to work with, like Eugene, and you're so smart and you're so good at everything that you do when it comes to this world, they want to keep hiring you and they want to keep expanding what you do. And I don't think the way we ask is like, I think important, even as an actor asking for work. This is a touchy subject because I'm sure you get people contacting you. I get people contacting me, probably not, obviously not as much as contacting you. And how do you go about being polite without inviting or necessarily, or do you even engage in those kind of communications with actors?
I take because there are just so many, right? I take the idea that no matter how they're phrasing it, it's just them going, "Hey, I exist. I'm out here. You remember me, right? You remember me." Or like, "Hey, check out my stuff." I don't think it's any. I give them the benefit of the doubt that it's never any pushier than that. No one's actually asking for like, "Hey, why aren't you casting me?" or "Hey, why haven't I worked with you?" Right? No, it's just like, "Hey, I'm here. I exist. I'm still alive." And that's it. And then I go like, "I recognize you're still alive," and that may like spark something in my head to go like, "Ooh, let's send that person an audition," or like, "Let's put them on a list," or something like that. And that's it is. It's just them advertising, right?
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
I just take it as like, oh, they're advertising. Just the same way that I get a flyer in the mail for a GE washing machine. You're like, oh yeah, I might need a washing machine. Same kind of like, it's just a happenstance that it'll happen to work or not. And then as not personal it is to me, I have to assume it's as, each actor is their own little business. And so they got to put it out with the same kind of professionalism and impersonal, trying to promote my business that I am receiving it as. And that's the way it kind of runs.
Yeah. Carlos just wrote, "We are 44 here, still alive." Thank you, Carlos. um, I think that is absolutely true. I find when I get a number of them myself, a lot, mostly from people I don't know, because my people I've worked with as students, and I have my own casting list and I know who they are and I know what they can do. And so they kind of don't really need to do that with me, even though they still occasionally they do. But I found that generic outreaches without, if I don't know you, without specifically having me to go to your website and listen to your demo, which is like another couple minutes, it would be great if people can identify their skill set, what that's specific to them, that is
Sure.
unique for me.
Sure.
Like I speak, fluent, Spanish. I'm from here. I have a neutral accent. I specialize in like 5-year-old boys, whatever, something. So I go like, oh, that's great. I'll keep that note in my head. But if I'm like, I'm the all around person, can do everything, I'm already deleting them because I'm not
Right.
going to remember that.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think about being specific about your qualities as a voice actor and just getting your foot in the door?
I think that's great. And that's even a bigger, like, as a performer in general, who are you? And I forget, there was a, there was an acting teacher of note who would give like the day one speech of just like, just figure out if you're a carrot or a potato, right? If you're a carrot, great. You're a carrot, you're stewed carrots, you're carrot souffle, you're this, you're that. If you're a potato, great. You're a potato, you're french fries, you're this, you're that. But you're not going to if you're a potato, you're not going to get the carrot rolls no matter how hard you try. Just figure out who you are, what you can do. Don't tell yourself you can do everything because you can't, right? Even the most famous people who are making millions and millions of dollars can only do a few things, right? Harrison Ford is exactly the same in most of his films,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he's just handsome and has that kind of like aloof comedy, and can be wonderfully serious. And then he was stunningly handsome when he was young, and now he's still ruggedly whoever he is. But he's not. Any of those other he's not Gene Hackman. He's not any of the other actors out there. He just figured out who he was, and that or someone else figured out for him, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll make money doing this. So like figure out the thing that you happen to get hired for, the thing that you happen to do well, and do that. And if you don't want to do that, what are you doing here? So yeah, learn, like really be honest about your specifics, not your aspirations, but what you actually are, and then do that.
I agree. That's
Yeah.
very good advice. I like that advice. I like how you phrased it too. I haven't had enough coffee today myself, actually. Okay. So I am going to open up for questions. It would be great if you either want to put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. There's so many people here. I don't know if I'm going to get to see everybody's hand. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time. Anything specific? Nope, nobody's. Oh, Teresa and John. Okay, great. Go ahead, Teresa. What's your question?
Okay, say that there's 20 different possibilities of what people can do. And say you're a person who can do maybe 14 of those 20 things, but maybe that's too many. So you want to do less than that. So, but you're able to do those 14 things really well, but you can't do the 6 other things well. Can you brand yourself with 14, or do you need to just do 3 or 4 or 5 things?
It's a great question. Reframe the idea of you doing these things well, because it's not well. Better than anyone I know. So can you do 3 or 4 things better than anyone you know? Because those are the things, right? Because unfortunately, the way this business is, only one person gets the role. So it's not about competence, might not even be about excellence. It's about like the unique shining star of like, oh my God, they were the best. So like if you feel like there are things that you are the best at with a capital B, I'm like, that's your jam. And then pick those 3 and just run with it.
That's such a great answer. I'm stealing that. Okay. I'm stealing that for my business class. I'm totally stealing it. Okay, John. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Groovy, baby. I'm trying to get my foot in the door. I'm pretty new to all of this. I've been at it for a little over a year, going on a year and a half now. So I still have a lot to learn. But I have a question in regards to casting. Say, like, when a role is posted and you receive quite a few auditions, say 500 or more, do you always listen to all 500, even if you think you have a winner at number 20?
Yes, with a caveat, and I'll give you guys the hint. If the auditions are like four or 5 lines, I listen to all the auditions. If I am made to put out, and I try not to, but if I am made to put out auditions that are 4 or 5 minutes long, I'm listening to the first 2 or 3 sentences to get like, yep, this is the right category. No, they're not right. And so like I will narrow down the 500 to 50 that way, which, the point is be excellent in the beginning is the most important part, right? So understand the role and the character in this and be unique in the beginning is the most important part. I'll narrow it down to like 50 and listen. But yeah, even if I feel like I've got some amazings, I don't know if I'm right or not. So like, I'm going to go through and I'm going to listen. I'm going to do my process for the whole thing. And everyone gets that shot in my ear. And then it...
That's you, but do you have any idea? Is that typical with casting directors in general?
Yes.
It's me and all the people I've worked for. Yeah. Is like, they're giving you at least a little bit of their ear to see if you're in the right ballpark, and then they'll give you your full ear if you were. And if you weren't, there's nothing you can do about it, right? There are things I might know about the character that I'm not allowed to say or didn't know. So like, just go and try your best, and you're getting listened to, and just make sure like you didn't miss that first joke, right?
And your editing is so bad that your slate is so long that it takes you 3 seconds to get to your first line.
Oh yeah, that's the
you can use up your space like that. I have a thing where I don't know about you, Gene, but Mimi and I, when we do casting, we love to hear the person's name. If we're going to have a slate, a lot of people aren't using slates anymore because of Gene's, what he just said is we only listen to the very beginning if this kind of role has a lot of lines. So we like to hear the person's name and then the character in the voice that they're going to use, because right from the beginning you set it up. And not all casting people like it that way. We like it that way. I don't know about you, Gene. I know people do it a lot of different ways. What about you?
I warn against that for 2 reasons. If you're going to do an in-character slate, Next thing you know, you added some words because the character has things going on and this and that. And the next thing you know, now the slate's long. So as long as it doesn't make the slate longer, the only other thing I would say is, especially if you're asked, like if you have a home studio and you record, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, and things like that, and you're like, the next thing you know, you've made your whole monologue. The only other thing to warn against is a slate is not as interesting as the dialogue, hopefully. If a slate is more interesting than the dialogue, you don't want to do that show. So like, kind of get to the dialogue. Or make the slate just your name, or just name an agency, as brief as possible so that we can get past it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Like that's been back and forth in the industry for a long time.
I know. I agree. Yeah, it is back and forth. I just thought to bring it up. We've got a lot of questions. We're gonna have to do this pretty quickly here, guys. I think Jason was next, and James.
Hey, Gene. Hey, I was wondering about your first, when you started off as a live actor. How did that kind of the training help you with the initial when you first started doing casting? I was wondering, like, when you first started casting.
Invaluable. Like if you need to know how to speak actor, right? To talk about like tactics and objectives and intent and this and that, and how to speak about like emotions that the character is feeling rather than what I want to see. And like I use that language to my day, language I learned 25 years ago. That's the language I'm using now, and I feel like that helps me get to who the character is in casting and in voice direction. So like I have to worry and synthesize as a voice director and as a casting director. I have to synthesize what the guys behind me who may have zero acting experience but know exactly how they want this thing to sound or feel or look are going to give me their language, and then I've got to be able to translate it into telling you why you're saying this line and what you feel when you're saying it and why you feel what you feel, to kind of, for lack of a better word, manipulate you into giving them what they want without knowing those words that could possibly lead you to indicating instead of acting.
Yeah, I really like that you're like the translator in between. I haven't seen the casting director like that. That's interesting view. Thank you.
Great, thank you, James.
I also tell everybody like if it's a good casting director, we're rooting for you. We're going to try to give you every tool that we can because we're lazy and we want to see 5 or 10 callbacks instead of 50. We want this over with. We're not getting paid by the hour, so like let's give the actor everything they can so that we can get the job done.
That is absolutely true too, James.
Hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you sound very loud.
I always assume because I'm in the UK, I just sound further away. Hi, Gene. Nice to meet you. I just wondered how often UK actors kind of get onto the casting directors in the US's kind of radar, and how often UK actors are cast over there.
It's tough now more than it used to be, because now we're much more used to remote records. Used to be I cast in LA for LA actors because that was way cheaper than getting a studio somewhere else. Now it's popping up a little more. I have a few UK actors, but they are they're a little more namey. What's happening more often here than UK actors is there are a ton in the US that I'll get on my time zone. But a lot of the actors that used to be in LA are kind of, as if they're voiceover only, several of them have just left LA for somewhere cheaper. And so now I record them from somewhere else, be it Hawaii or Idaho or somewhere like that. Long story short, some more than it used to be, but a very small slice of the pie still.
Sure. Yeah, fair play.
I think it would have to be where they're specifically looking for somebody who has that natural accent and they haven't been able to find that specific type of voice. I only had to do that for someone who was looking for a 10-year-old boy, and we had auditioned every agency here, and so had to start going to the UK. Sure. So I think it happens on special occasions, yeah.
Yeah, and on rare occasion they want like Sarah Noonan, I worked with at Nickelodeon. She's at Warner Brothers now. She had to do casting in the UK a few years ago for like some Lord of the Rings project, and so that was all UK actors, but it was produced here in the US. But that's a rarity. It's a rarity.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
it is rare. I don't know how much more time we're kind of running out of time here. I want to ask a question that is on a couple that are on the chat. Here's one, and this is a question people always ask. Is there, if you go back to your younger self when you first got into entertainment industry, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself now, if you could go back?
Oh yeah, sure. Do something. Do something of what you're trying to do every day. Right? If you're trying to be an actor, do something to forward your career every day. Even if that's just sending out your little postcards or the emails. I don't even know if they do postcards anymore. Or like taking a class or seeing a thing or going to one of those resources like the TV Academy and watching some interviews or this or that. Or doing a play or getting together your other actor friends and doing a reading or this or that. Just do something every day. And if you're like, if that's tiresome, that's a good indication that like, do you really want to do this? So, and if it's exhilarating to do something every day, that's a great indication that you're on the right track.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I like that a lot. Because you know what? It's easy to say you're doing something. It's another thing to do it. I know when I was writing, I used to have to get up at 5 o'clock every single morning and write because I had a little kid. And I loved doing it at the time. And I have things I want to write now, but you know what? I don't feel like getting up early and writing. I feel like doing something different. So, and not that our feelings should matter, but I think at 25, 30 years old, I think that's the time that you start really taking things seriously. So here's a good question. And this is in regard to teenage boy actors. We have a couple in the audience right now, a couple really talented ones. So this person's saying it's slow for teen boys, post voice change, but under 18. I'm curious if my son is competing for roles with 18 plus males now that he's out of the 12-year-old roles due to voice change. Also, do you remember kids for future roles, or is it each audition totally independent?
Great questions, both of them. Yes and no. There is that sweet spot in some roles where you just want that and it's not so much in the voice. It's in the line delivery of you want that kid who's just like, I don't know how to do laundry, right? That's the kid you want, right? The man-child, which is what they sound like when they're like 14, 15, 16, right? You want for lack of a better word, that innocent or naivete, like you may hire like 14, 15, 16-year-old kid. But yes, there is a drop off between like the cute thing that has to be in every preschool show, and then there's the drop off, and then yes, you're competing against adults who do funny sounds, but that's what you'll be doing the rest of your life. So if you want to do it, that's what's gonna happen. Get used to it. As far as the kids for future roles, I can't, because their voices change once a year, right? The 9-year-old, the 8-year-old, and the 7-year-old, they sound different. So like it's tabula rasa every year, and that's why you got to listen to all 500 when you put out the new breakdown. I've seen kids, and I've hired kids in like the next stage of their life, because the cream will always just rise to the top, and those kids who are good actors will remind you all over again that they're good actors. But yeah, it's not like adults where you're just like, I know what Tom Kenny sounds like. I know what Dee Baker sounds like. It's,
Yeah.
that thing,
Well, this is going to be the last question. I kind of know this answer myself, but when we talk about stunt casting or celebrity casting, what is the ratio of celebrity casting to normal voice actor casting?
depends on the show.
I know, right?
It really does. Some of those shows that I've worked on have like nobody famous, or like two, right? And some of them, especially the ones that have a little bit bigger budget or a little more prominence, or they want, it's like a celebrity unless it's not. So it would be like 50% celebrities. They cost more. They're way more difficult to schedule. However, everyone wants to hang out with famous people, and you can make a promo from a famous person, and it's one of those things. And especially if the show's been on for 2 or 3 years, all the guest stars, right, are going to be celebrities because they need to prove that they're still a relevant cartoon, right?
But don't you think like that also the EPs sometimes really like to work with these name actors? They're like a fan of them from some show or something that they've worked on in the past.
Yeah. Right.
I find that happens. They're like, oh, I remember that person in these movies and I love them. I always wanted to work with them. And they're like,
Or the network wants to cut through the clutter and be like, we got famous people.
I one time had cast somebody who was, I'm going to say B-list famous, but their parents were A-list famous. And she didn't show up for the first session. And then I called the agent like, oh my God, there's something on my. And then I gave her another shot, which I didn't want to because I already knew. And she didn't show up for that one either.
Yeah.
And they actually tried to get me to give her a third chance. And I'm like, nope, not happening. But I'm sure people don't ever not show up, right? That's never happened to you.
Yeah, never, unless there was some kind of communication error, right? Like, I thought it was Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Yeah. Okay, well, that's pretty fun. I thought it was Tuesday. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's why you have to double confirm everything. Right. All right. So it's 12:58. I've kept you on way longer. You are so awesome, Gene. I'm so glad I harassed you endlessly to be here today. You are such a wealth of information. And I am just so honored to have known you all this time and been able to work with you. And so thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to add before we end for the day?
No, I think we covered a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, just keep at it, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, all.